Our next speakers come to us from Toronto area, and we appreciate them also coming to our conference to present their story. We have Kira Leskew and Colin Fraser. They're coming to us from Amberwood Doors, and they're going to share with us their experience in using the integrated approach of TOC and Lean Six Sigma in order to thrive in uncertainty. Please join me in welcoming Kira and Colin.
Thank you very much.
I think you're going to take a little sound in the video.
You want it off?
Yeah.
Hi there, how's everyone today? Great. Good, so are we, and we're pretty happy to be here. And we've had an exceptional year this year, so let's just start. So thriving in uncertainty, so, how TOC Lean Six Sigma paved the way to growth. So Amberwood Doors, we are a small manufacturer of made-to-order custom wood entry doors. And we'd had a lot of success on the quality side in meeting the lead time side, but it was extremely stressful trying to do it, lots of overtime and lots of late nights. So we're a new company, we're just in our 6th year right now, and we'd had a lot of success in getting stuff done on time. But each of our doors is unique, and we build one at a time. So the design is unique right through the production process. We'll show you some pictures so you can get an idea of the scope of the variability. We make single doors, doors with side lights, doors with transoms, square top doors, as well as arch top doors with, within arches, there's several types of arches as well. Our startup growth was extremely strong. We'd been averaging 37% growth year over year since we started the company. But we were entering a period of perceived lessening demand. We didn't know what really was going to happen, so we wanted to make ourselves competitive so that whatever came through in the outside environment, we wanted to make sure that we had what we needed internally to deal with it, and not only to cope with it, but to thrive and really be effective as an organization. But we weren't really sure how we were going to do this. We really needed to know what mattered in our manufacturing side and what didn't to really make a difference. We wanted to have competitive pricing, we wanted to increase our volume, and we wanted to increase profitability. So our current reality was that growth was slowing in our company. Pricing pressure was increasing, which we hadn't really had to deal with since we started the company. And we didn't know the best way to get any more out of our factory without spending significant money on capital improvements. Because of the uncertainty in the market, we were very reluctant to do that because we didn't know if it was going to work or not. The other thing was senior management, mostly the two of us, as well as some of our top people, were spending enormous amounts of time running to keep everything working. And where did we want to be? Well, we really believed that if we understood our processes better, we could be more competitive in our pricing, we could increase our volume, we could make a lot more money, and we could have a lot more fun. So this is what we do. The door on the left is a single door, so it would be sort of a reproduction historical door, 3 feet wide by 7 feet tall. The door on the other side is a newer home. It's 7 feet wide and over 16 feet tall. It doesn't show up well in the picture, but it actually has handmade custom wrought iron on it. And as you can see, all of the stuff in the transom is quite intricate. And there's a little band which isn't actually showing up very well. There's a bunch of hand-carved work on it. So on the small door, we're talking about 6 hours on our drum. On the large one, about 40 plus hours on the drum. So we would make those in line, in sequence. The next ones, we have what's called a Gothic Top Door, so it's an arch with a point. And then the next one we have is just a square door, but it's got all the curved and it's got custom glass and all the unique moldings on it. So these two doors actually take almost the same amount of time on the drum, but they have enormous variability in other areas of the process. And then finally, we make these large recreational doors. This is called Panoramic bifolding door. This particular one is typical size. It's 16 feet wide and 8 feet tall. And each one of those panels weigh a couple hundred pounds. So this is something we thought we were really good at until we did TOC, because the total number of hours that took to build it were low. However, it took a lot of drum time. So what we did, the SDA Model. At this point, our strategy was that essentially we needed to figure out how to be more competitive in marketing. So we did very little on the strategy side, and we went straight to design. We needed to improve our capability to have a smooth running operation. So we started with a process map to determine what was going on and what we needed to change. And what we found out very quickly was we had a balanced line with enormous process variation. So what did that mean? I mean, people stopped or unable to do what they were doing, or moving people around all the time, chasing Herbie, trying to find the bottleneck. So our process is pretty simple. We start with milling. So our lumber comes in and it's rough lumber, so it's not even squared. We have to do all that. Then it goes into shaping, which is where we put a profile on something, and then it goes into assembly. From there, some of our doors ship, probably less than 20% would go out at that point. The majority of them go for staining, which is either paint or finish. And finishing, which is stain or paint. Then they would go to final assembly, where everything's put back together. We put the hardware on the door, we put the sills, and we put the glass in. Then it would go to delivery, and then a majority of our products also get installed. So we discovered we had the balanced line, and when process variation hit, late deliveries, processes with no work, processes with work overload, wandering bottleneck, overtime, lots of stress. So what we did is we decided, since the line was balanced, we picked what we wanted to have as a strategic bottleneck. And we picked this to be our assembly center because of the skill level involved of the people that were doing the work. And it was probably the most technically difficult. It was also slightly, we can increase milling and shaping through equipment and speed that process up more easily than we could speed up the drum. So what we did was we had improvement events at the drum and in final assembly. Since the line was kind of balanced, we could use the labor that was in those pre-drum. They had the flexibility, in final assembly could go and work pre-drum so that could create us what we needed to put our buffers in place for the drum. So I'm going to give this to Colin. He's going to explain what we did in the factory.
Excellent. So in our current factory, I was always very much a stickler for having a clean and neat shop. The challenge is that the shop just didn't work. It looked great when we had people through the plant, but it wasn't really working at all. In the photograph, you can see there are some clamps up on the wall. There's a door in behind here, and there's a sander. Well, the challenge is that this was the drum, and none of those parts got used on the drum. They were all used at the other end of the shop, about 60 feet away, actually about 100 feet away. So that was the first challenge, and it was phenomenal to have John in and John Zahora, and we identified that right away within about the first day of the implementation. The new drum, 5S is my thing now, so that's kind of what I'm in charge of. So we 5S the assembly area. Right now we're about 60% the way on it. I still have a few things I'd like to see done on that drum. There's no more than 10 steps that drum operator has to go in the distance around the drum, which is great. He just stays there all day now and doesn't spend any time walking the floor. The next challenge was our final assembly area. What we had in our final assembly area were products that were sitting on top of, they were in the range of $20,000 to $30,000 products. sitting on top of plastic horses from Home Depot, and tools sitting off to the side on benches and on top of other people's doors, which you can see in the background of this top picture. We managed to very well for about 5 years not to damage much product, but we saw as we were growing, this was going to become a real challenge. So what we did was we created some spits, got everything rolling, so from the time the door actually is built, it goes onto a spit, and then we've created a workbench in behind so that all the parts can sit on top of that bench, and 5S that area as well. Again, we're about 50 to 60% on the way there now on that initiative.
Okay, so back to the SDAIS model. We have this design. We're now in the activate stage. The first thing we did is we did training for the whole shop. We shut our shop down for half a day, and we had every single person attend, including administrative staff. We watched the movie The Goal, and we did some of the simulations. And then at this point, we got buy-in from people in about half an hour, which I couldn't get in the 5 years previously, having discussions and explanations and giving books out. So it was really one of those cases where they had to do it to believe it. Another thing that we did is we had, on our worksheets, we had always given the total hours that we were going to do for a job processing throughout the whole shop, and their goal was to do that or better. We revised that just to show the drum hours, and we were emphasizing that drum is an operation, not a person, so that the whole shop was geared towards, even though I'm not the operator on the drum, it's part of my job to make sure that that drum meets that goal. We revised our production schedule to focus around the drum. So we had previously been scheduling each little department, and what we did is we started scheduling the drum based on lead times and based on when we could get materials in. So we actually had enormous variability in that as well. So we were able to really significantly increase our throughput through the shop by doing that. And as Colin said, we did the 5S on both the drum and the final assembly area. One thing that we did that we didn't have previously, we were actually running too lean. So we weren't a shop that had a lot of inventory. We actually were too low. So we didn't have enough room to put in buffers. And putting those buffers in place actually allowed us to significantly increase what was going through the shop, because when the variation hit, it wasn't really affecting us anymore. And we also tied material releases to the drum schedule. Previously, we were doing material releases to our first process, which was milling. So when milling was running low on material, we were releasing more. But then what we actually found is that milling was getting more material, so they had to go faster. And they started finding ways, because they realized that they were behind because the material was being released to the drum. The next thing, the model, the I stage, the improve stage, focused improvements to drive business results. So at this stage, this is when the fun really started to happen. We identified certain designs of doors that we found that could go through our drum more quickly and more easily than others. We found other ones that could go through the drum easily, but pre-drum, they were a bit of a challenge. So we were able to, they took a lot more time. So we were able to change the design on these doors so that we could speed them up pre-drum, which sped the whole process up. Then we were able to bring our pricing down and price a lot of these things a lot more aggressively. So very conservatively, we decreased our pricing across the board 20% in the past year, starting in about March. This led to a sales increase net of about 25%. So our total doors that we're building actually went up about 45%. And throughput up 23% and no change in OE. So bottom line, T minus OE equals profit. So in this market with decreasing prices, our profit has gone up. On the sustain side, institutionalize the improvements to sustain the results. So improvement and change has been a constant in our company since the beginning, and it's quite well established in our customer, in the way we do business. But the improvements are now focused around the SDA model. As demand increased, we knew exactly where to look in our process to increase capacity. And every day we look at the results. So if we schedule a job on the drum and it's supposed to take 6 hours the previous day, and then they're supposed to have 2 hours on the next job, the next morning we look, did that one get done in the 6 hours, yes or no? And where are we on the next job? So if we've done 2 hours and it's supposed to take 10 hours, are we on track that we're gonna hit it by the end of the next day? And then the production team understands their results and understands what their results that day have to do with the overall company goal. So, TOC before and after. See that little guy screaming down? I think that was me. Preparing to produce results. Production was definitely run by gut feel. If an opportunity came in, we would take it based on whether or not the two of us felt that we could do it, and could we push it through the shop. There were long hours for everybody involved, not just the two of us, but almost all of our production staff and some of the administrative support staff as well. There was a ton of expediting that had to be done, both in terms of phone calls and actually running around getting things, and it was pretty high stress. So after TOC, higher results achieved calmly. So we were able to simplify, this is John's little joke for me. I'm a yoga teacher, so he sent me the meditation. We had production and material releases that were much more coordinated and much tighter. We reduced the overtime almost entirely. So as you'll see in some of our numbers later, this past October we were up almost 45% over the previous year, and we had almost no overtime. I don't think we ran one Saturday, and we had a few hours of overtime during the week. Expediting was minimal, and management had a lot more time to spend on other things, despite the fact that we are now doing more and we're a larger company. Increased profits, and everyone is a lot happier. It's really fun to go out in the shop floor. Everyone's calm. They're looking after what needs to be done, and it's definitely a lot more fun. So, increased revenue and throughput. The lighter color one is fiscal year to date for last year, and the darker color is fiscal year to date for this year. And we did the TOC implementation just at the beginning of our fiscal year. So far, sales net of the price decrease is 23.1% increase. Materials increased about 25%, so throughput increased 21.7%. And this is our sales increase. The blue line is where we were last year, and the purple line is where we are this year. So we did the implementation at the very beginning of this graph. It was in March. So it took us a little bit of time to get it figured out. Once we did, we were able to, it was more figuring out the pricing side. So what do these changes mean to our pricing, and taking advantage of that in the market. And once we did, you can see in June, July, and August we're up. But then we really start to see in the fall that we are really able to take advantage of the improvements that we've made, and we're seeing significant improvement in the market. Both of those months were up 40 and 50% over the previous year. So lessons learned. In my opinion, the INS are the most important part of the model. Strategy, design, and activate were actually relatively easy. And once the system was stable, the improved part was what, really where the meat was and where we really got our results. But this is also where the part where the really great leadership is required, because it's very easy to get it done once, but then to keep it there and to keep it happening requires some effort and some different ways of doing things. Continuous improvement has been part of our culture since the time we started in business. However, we still had to deal with resistance in certain behaviors. And we had a team-oriented approach, but we actually were moving different things around in the shop. So things that we previously had in assembly, we took some of those things off it because they weren't really necessary and they didn't need the skill level. but the people that were doing that didn't necessarily want to give it up because they felt that they were the best at it. So we had to have some discussions around that in order for them to understand that they were actually helping the company be better by giving some of those things up and helping somebody else to do them. Some of the stuff also, people had concerns that, we want to do this or we want to do that. So we had to have open discussions with people and really great communication. And sometimes they had a really valid point. We hadn't taken everything into account. And sometimes we were able to not do the changes we had planned, and we listened to them. And other times we were able to find a third route that was better, that was based on what we wanted as senior management and what the people doing the job wanted, and we were able to find the better third solution. So we worked to gain the buy-in of those people, and it's worked extremely well. So sustain. The most important part of this has been to review our results in a very timely manner with the people at the level that's involved. So the production staff look at them daily. As management, we look at it weekly and we look at it monthly. We also have clearly defined objectives and where we want to be on our throughput and our sales, and we look at it. And everyone in the whole company knows how close we are to achieving that. And we track it, and if we aren't doing it, we're having discussions about where can we go, how can we do this better. And this is really the walk the talk aspect. And in my opinion, this has worked well for us. We have a small company, but it worked well because it came from the top, and we had complete buy-in from the two of us and complete agreement in our leadership team, which is rather small. But that translated down the whole way through the company, and people really, we took it seriously, so everybody else did. And is TOC Lean Six Sigma part of our culture? Yes, it definitely is, because if we talk to them about this stuff, they actually they don't get it, that there's another way to do it. So that was pretty exciting for us to get to that point. So more lessons learned from TOC Lean Six Sigma. Prior to doing this, we were seriously looking at a CNC router, which would have looked after the two first parts of our production stage, the milling and the shaping part. And it would have been an investment of $250,000 to about $450,000. And after TOC Lean Six Sigma, the total shop modifications were about $10,000, which with the results of over 40% in this October over last October. We can also increase our shop capacity about another 100% without any significant major investment. So I would say that's an enormous success, and we're very grateful for the ability to learn this and have the teaching from Goldratt in order to get us there. Thank you.
We have some time for some questions. Yes, sir.
Colin, the decision to roll back the prices, I think you said 23 or 25% price cut. Was that a difficult decision for your company, looking at market share and whether that was going to really yield gains?
Repeat the question.
If you could repeat the question.
Yeah,
for the
the question was, what was it like for us to have to cut prices, and why, why we felt we had to do it in order to keep market share, to gain market share?
Yeah, I can take part of that. The implementation with John Zahora was really quick. We did the training in New Haven in January. John came in March. Price reductions really started about 30 days after that. So the decision was actually quite easy, because it was to say that, hey, we can do this now, and we saw the profits increase right away on the few small jobs that we were doing. That we said, well, what the heck? I mean, we need to increase and grow the company. So we brought those prices down, and we're just in the process of a possible another price decrease, because we are seeing profits increasing fairly significantly. To the point where we can increase that volume. We do have, as Kira said, we have about, in the next year, we have easily another 100% room, another 100% more capacity to go. So-
Part of it, I mean, we were dealing with the market reality here. Despite that the particular market we're in is quite strong compared to some, the perception was that everything should be cheaper. Everything's on sale at the mall. All the cars are on sale. My house should be on sale too if I'm building a new home. So everything should be cheaper. So we had to deal with that. And people would say, yeah, we love your stuff. It's the best. We know it's the highest quality. But we're not going to pay X amount more for it than something else. And they would definitely go with a less expensive product rather than ours. So we did have to adjust prices to deal with that reality.
Other questions?
We don't pay too much attention to our competitors, actually.
Maybe just repeat
If you
the
could
question.
repeat.
Yeah, the question
Yes,
was,
thank you.
how did our competitors react to this? And we actually don't pay too much attention to our competitors. We wish them well. They hope that they figure their business out, but we're more concerned about what our business is and what we need to do to be successful. And we try to focus on that rather than, trying to be adversarial in any way.
Yeah, we know that they're kind of scratching their head and asking themselves where we came from because we really started the company in the front room of our house, and now we're taking a significant amount of business out of a very small area, and obviously our prices are coming down a little bit, so that is a challenge for them, I'm sure.
Great. Other questions? D.
It looks like glass may be a major supply to you. What have you done to align what you're doing with your glass supply?
Yeah, the question was glass. It looks like it's a major part of our supply. And glass, as you may have been able to tell from, there's an enormous amount of variability there, so much so that we have to use multiple suppliers. And it's actually one of the hardest things for us to deal with because glass breaks very easily. So we're not buying something standard off the shelf. So if someone's making something for us and it's extremely fragile and it breaks, they have to start again. We've actually been talking about that a lot this week, and the answer that we've come up with is we actually need to increase our buffers to allow for that because their reliability is probably never going to be as good as what ours is. Yeah.
Other questions? I have one for you.
Yes.
Think I remember you're saying that John was up there and you started this in the March timeframe.
Yeah.
How long was it from when you began the journey before you were able to get results?
About a week.
About a week.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was. We should thank John as well. I mean, John Sahora was incredible with the implementation. He worked pretty tirelessly for that week. We had Subway pretty much every day. that was our lunch and dinner. And Pierre as well. Pierre did a phenomenal job in putting the package together for us, knowing that we were a small company. But we saw the results while John was there, and quickly after that, within the first month, we were smiling again, and we were saying, "Hey, this is a real company, and we can do this thing."
It took about 4 months for it to sort of translate through to shipping because we had to do adjusting prices, which we did that immediately. And then by the time that filters through the quotations stage to getting to where you're actually shipping product out, it took about 4 months when we start to saw that. But definitely, I mean, you saw the numbers. The month we did it in March, and starting in April, the numbers started going up. So
Excellent. Beautiful. Anything else? Well, please join me in thanking Kira and Colin for this excellent presentation.
thank you very much.
Thank
We
you so
appreciate
much.
it.
Appreciate your being here.
Thank
Thank
you
you.
so much.
Thank you. Your